So thanks so much, Kathleen, and thank you for your time today. It's good to be with you. It's a little awkward to speak to two sides of the room, but I will do my best. So really appreciate each of you being here. And for those of you who were at the recent City Council meeting, what an amazing evening that was. It was so inspiring. I walked out and I called my husband and just said, you know, Terry, this is an amazing community. It was uplifting to have people come together about something in such a positive and gracious way that speaks to really this turning point, I think, for our community. We have some opportunities to take an amazing history and tradition and just elevate it to that next level. And I'm so excited to be part of that journey. So thank you to all of you who are helping with this this work. It's so important. So today I'm here to talk about the facts only about the bond. And I have Mr. Lemke here, who's our board vice president, who's going to help with our low-tech presentation. I want to introduce for a moment, and really it's only low-tech because I've been dragging these around, Chris and I, all over the community for the last 2 months. But I want to introduce our other board members present. Rebecca Deal is here, one of our board members, and Greg Wall, our board president. And yeah. I honestly think there are, I'm not even sure if there's another board in the state that's received the Board of Distinction Awards 6 times. And our board of directors has also been the Board of the Year, which is the outstanding board of all boards of the year, once as well. So they're really an honored board, and you can be grateful to have people with such experience and commitment. Yeah. So it's just us, right? It's just us here today having a conversation. I said that to Steve. It's not a big presentation. It's just a conversation among people who share a common community. So I want to start with a placard that Chris has, and it's the Great Pumpkin cartoon. And we met with the Kitsap Sun editorial board yesterday. Chris, we'll probably need to kind of do like the Vanna thing. We'll have to walk it over here too. Yeah.
Do that. Woo! See? Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, anyhow, the cartoon basically is a play off the Great Pumpkin story. And it has Linus and Lucy, you know, in the pumpkin patch, and the Kitsap Sun. Honestly, I think we're clever and thought it was humorous that we would sit out there and wait for our bond to pass. But I'm here to say that I am willing to sit in the pumpkin patch as long as it takes. We need this pumpkin to come, and I believe it will on February 9th. So it also illustrates, though, it's been a long time since we've built something. It's been over 28 years since we've built something in our district. I talked to many of you when I first arrived. It feels like 30 years ago, but it was only 3. But remember, we were in a bit of a budget pickle, right? And many of you stepped up and helped us with that, and we've really kind of gotten over that situation. And our enrollment for the first time in 16 years has had 2 consecutive years of growth. And that's our next chart. We've really, we're close to 10,000 students again. And we had previously, I know, sorry, Chris.
Okay.
Our enrollment previously had been declining, but the last 2 years were quite a bit up. And I think, you know, that yesterday morning at the chamber board meeting, Angie was talking about Walmart sales, for example. And one of the things that we thought was very interesting is our store here is outperforming the Paulsbo store, which would say that our growth, and you can see that Doug has mentioned that with real estate, the growth in this part of the county is honestly real. And for those of you who drive around any of the back roads or side roads, you're seeing the building that's going on, and we're seeing that in terms of students coming. We also know the Nimitz has been named a home port permanently, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the Stennis family as their folks go out to sea again. But I think that Seattle is creating a situation where folks aren't able to afford to live there and work there. So our area, I think, is quite attractive to people. So enough about the business piece, because I'm going to ask, Robert's going to talk a little bit about that at the end. I want to talk about education at this point. Some of you have heard our conversation about moving our 6th grade out of the elementary and moving our 9th grade to the high school. And I want to explain why that's necessary. I want to start by saying that Kathleen alluded to that when we talk about there are 295 school districts in our state. and 293 of them have ninth grade as part of their high school, and 2 do not, and we're one of those. Puyallup is the other, and they're moving to ninth grade next year. So why is it important for ninth grade to be part of a high school, and why does everyone, it seems, around our state and country feel this is important? Well, ninth graders need to have access to all other high school classes that 10th through 12th graders have access to. And so examples are currently, we are busing students from our 3 junior highs to the high school every morning so they can take Algebra Trig, first year of Naval ROTC, marching band, French, classes that we can't provide in each junior high. Remember the financial situation we were in, right? We can't provide classes when we don't have enough students at each junior high for that. But if they were at the high school, they would have access to those classes just as they do in many other districts in our state. So this is a serious resource issue. People have asked, well, how much money does it cost to transport ninth graders up? Well, it's significant. I will tell you, we found the money because when we went to all-day kindergarten, we reduced bus routes in the midday so we could then use that money to bus ninth graders. However, I will say that our biggest resource, and I've said this to a group, many groups, and I can say this here too because there are people as old as I am. I think our biggest resource today that I worry about is time. It's not so much money. I can't buy more time, right? And so when we take children from Sedgwick, for example, and drive them to the high school in the morning and then turn around and drive them back to school, they're late for their next class. So it's a time issue as well as a money to transport issue. Also, 6th graders really benefit from being in a middle school because they're able to have science labs and math classes that are at a different level than at elementary school. And math, I think, is critically important. You've heard me talk about that before. So those are some of the education program drivers. So let's also talk about enrollment, because some of you have said to me, and some of you have written emails, well, Michelle, we used to have 11,000 plus kids, and we didn't need a second high school then. We managed to make it work. So why now? We're close to 10,000. Well, here's one example. 10 years ago, we didn't have all-day kindergarten. And all-day kindergarten is a real benefit for our wee little ones, right? Our youngest children. In particular, with the challenges and expectations for today's graduates, we need to start early. So we have 700 kindergartners, give or take 1 or 2. Actually, that's a joke, right? We know where every one of them are. We have at least 700. Yeah, thank you. So if you take roughly 20 of the little kindergartners to every one adult, every one teacher, we would require how many classrooms? A lot, thank you. No, so 20 times 5 is 100 times 7 because of 700. We require 35 classrooms today. And when it was only a half-day kindergarten program, we only required half as many classrooms because you could run a morning class and an afternoon class in the same room. You can't do that now. So we've added the need for at least 17 more classrooms. Well, that's half a school. Seriously. So that's created a different capacity need, as well as we have lowered class sizes in keeping with our teachers' bargaining agreement and because it's good for kids. And when you have smaller class sizes, you need more classrooms. That's how that works. So our enrollment needs and program needs have really dictated a different layout. So 7 of our 10 elementary schools are currently full, and 3 have some room. Olalla, South Colby, and Manchester have some room. The rest are full. So our next strategy really is either we lift the 6th grade out to lift the 9th grade out, or we keep moving kids around the district and adding portables at the elementary. Well, our board and community felt that it was more important, if we're going to have portable classrooms, to put them at the secondary level, or if we're going to build, in this case, a second high school, it really needs to happen at the secondary because of the academic needs of our 9th graders through 12th graders and the ability to lift 6th grade out. And we feel that that makes the most sense. We don't want to add more portables. We already have 85 in the district, and that's the equivalent of 2 schools. And some of those were purchased as far back as 1962, used from Seattle. I know it's not quite the dishwasher story. How many of you remember that? We are so frugal here. Yeah, our 1947 dishwasher at Olalla we finally replaced this summer. And we bought it used in 1947. We are frugal. Anyhow, so that's the academic case, right? So let me talk just for a minute about why we chose a STEM high school theme, which is really science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's the theme, if you will, for the new school. And one of the reasons is because we realize and recognize that Washington State is number 3 in our country in employing STEM-related fields. We have Boeing, we have Microsoft, Amazon, and so forth. I mean, we're up there. And if you're in business in the tech field, you know that being number 3 in the country is something amazing. I mean, Seattle is booming, as you know. However, Washington State is 47th in the country in preparing K-12 graduates to take those jobs. So there's a real mismatch, a huge mismatch. We really need to be able to provide a facility that provides the support for students to be successful in those fields, because we'd like our kids to grow up. My husband and I have 4 children. We'd love to have them grow up, go to school, and come back and live somewhere within our vicinity. Maybe they wouldn't as much, but we would like that. So that's important. And we have phenomenal programs in our current high school, no question. AP Computer Science for the first time this year, partnering with Microsoft. We have amazing kids. We really, really do. However, we have some limitations. And $2 million of this bond is to support the current school. For safety needs, our fire panel is failing. And for those of you who work in fire service, if it fails to a certain point, we have to hire a fire watch person who walks around the building looking for fire. I guess they yell fire when they see it, right? Robert, maybe?
No, these days.
Okay. Oh, they write it down? Okay. Send a memo? Maybe they text somebody, right? Fire. And then we have electrical needs. You wouldn't think that, but basic electrical needs. The building is 30 years old. And so the electrical needs are exemplified by a year ago, the Boeing Corporation offered us equipment to work on a composites lab for our students to work on airplane parts that were less dense, perhaps less weight. We weren't able to accept the donation though because we didn't have the electrical infrastructure to support the equipment. And that's a problem, I think, for our kids. So we want to make sure that what we create is something amazing so our kids have the same advantages and maybe even more than some of our surrounding districts, right? So that's the STEM focus. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the cost of the building. The bond we're bringing to you this time, 10 years later, is $40 million less than the last bond we brought to the community. And the school we're asking to build is 30,000 square feet smaller. So we're asking to contemplate not overbuilding in this sense. We're trying to build a nimble design, which is a core for 1,800 students, but space to open for 1,500. What we want to do is make sure we don't overbuild, but that it's easy to add on should more kids come than we think. And we think 1,500 is conservative. And I will be heartbroken if we open a school and have to put portables on it when we open it. But we want to create a building that is easily able to add brick and mortar to. And we want to create a building then that's very efficient to run as well. I also want to say that we've done our homework on the size of the school. We looked up the data on all high schools built in Washington State in the last 10 years. Which was really interesting, actually, and found, of course, the school district that builds high schools for the least amount of money. You knew I would. So it was Bethel School District, and Mr. James Hansen, who is the capital projects coordinator at Bethel, came to visit with us. And what James said is if you design a school where all the labs can be used every period, because they're the most expensive part of the school, you can save money in your design and building. So that's what we're trying to do. So we cut 30,000 square feet out of the plan that used to be there. And so we're building, I think, a really efficient sized school that we plan to use strategically. So during the course of that conversation, Steve Rice of Rice Fergus Miller contacted me, and we kind of bumped into each other at a couple community events, and he said, do you know, I think we could really look at this design and make a real difference for the district. And I said, wow, Steve, that would be fantastic. So when I met with Steve, what I learned is that the most efficient structure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, privately later, but the most efficient structure was an igloo, right? So an igloo, and I thought, well, we can't build that. Well, we shouldn't build that on our 57 acres, but let's do the next best thing. So Steve's here today to share just a few moments what could happen if we created an amazingly engineered building. So Steve?